You're listening to the Colts Blue Zone Podcast with Mike Chappell and Dave Griffiths.
Hello, Colts fans, and welcome to the Colts Blue Zone Podcast. My name is Joe Hopkins, joined, of course, by Mike Chappell. Today is our first recap episode of the 2022 season. Mike, we've not been in this position before. We're not here to discuss a loss nor a victory. What are your thoughts on how are you doing, first of all, and what are your general thoughts entering a Monday with no win or loss?
Well, I was alive the last time they tied. You probably weren't. It was 1982. So, it's, they didn't lose, but this is one, you look at the schedule, you're always going to lose one you shouldn't and win one you shouldn't. But when you play division, you play at Houston, a team that's rebuilding, it's a game you got to win. And you can try to spin it however you want, but this was a major missed opportunity.
Missed opportunity for the Colts. We're going to recap the game, discuss takeaways, and, of course, check in on the rest of the AFC South, see exactly where their division foes settled after Sunday's dust. But we start here with a game recap. Colts visit the Texans week 1, heading into the game. I'm sure if you're a Colts fans, you already knew that the Colts had lost 8 straight division openers. The Colts get the ball, and their season starts with 3 and out. 3 straight Jonathan Taylor touches, gains just 9 yards, and the Colts have to punt right away. But the defense would do their job and force a 3 and out of their own, giving the Colts back. Second possession starts on the 26-yard line for Indianapolis. 2nd and 10 now, Matt Ryan finds Michael Pittman Jr. for 17 yards. He'd be busy in this game. After picking up a 3rd and 1 with his legs, Ryan would find Pittman for 8-yard gainer and setting up 8-yard gainer on 3rd and 7, setting up a 1st and 10 at Houston's 35. But the drive would stall with 3 consecutive JT touches that gained just 8 yards. 4th and 2 at Houston's 27. Frank Wright decides to just kick the field goal this time, and the Colts get their first points of the season, 3-0 Indianapolis. Second possession for the defense and their second 3 and out of the ball game. Indy gets the ball back at the 30-yard line, and the offense would march right down the field. 11-yard pass to Hines, 20-yard pass to Mike Strawn. JT finally springs loose on the ground, goes off right tackle for another 17. Couple more Jonathan Taylor carries, gains 13 more yards, and the Colts have a 1st and goal at the 9. First down, Taylor is stuffed for a 2-yard loss. 2nd down, Matt Ryan would find the rookie Alec Pierce in the back of the end zone, but he drops it. A tough debut for the rookie who failed to record a catch in this one. Later in the game, he was also evaluated for a concussion after taking a brutal hit over the middle. We'll talk more about Alec Pierce's debut a little later in the show. 3rd down, Ryan hits Nyheim Hines for a 9-yard gain. That'll set up a 4th and goal from the 2-yard line. The Colts decide to run a wildcat play, direct snap to Nyheim Hines. Mike, this play really had no chance. Hines was blown up immediately for a 2-yard loss. Colts turn the ball over on downs. What are your thoughts on kind of that final goal-to-go situation with the drop of Pierce and then that play call on 4th and 2?
Well, the Wildcat's always a controversial call when it doesn't work. And, Frank said it's a play that they really liked, a play they've had success with, and that's fine. Houston played it really well. The defensive end, who sort of he's going to get the handoff to Taylor, but he came off that and just smothered Hines. It had no chance to work at all. And when the rookie drops a touchdown, we wouldn't be having this discussion if he catches it, and it wasn't. It wasn't a tough catch. It was right there. He led him perfect, and he just didn't secure it. And those are the ones you just scratch your head at because you got to make the play. When the time comes, make the play, and then we're not talking about a 4th and goal wildcat or whatever. So unfortunate, and as we've seen, it came back to bite the Colts big time because it totally shifted momentum back to Houston.
It really did, and Hines not only being stuffed, but losing 2 more yards on the play gave Houston a little bit of extra room as well. That play, a complete disaster. I really don't, if you want to run the Wildcat every once in a while, maybe on 3rd and goal, 2nd and goal, give them a different look, that's fine. But for your last chance, 4th and goal, you need 2 yards. You're not going to at least have the threat of the pass at all. Is a little frustrating to me. To my knowledge, I don't think Nyheim Hines has ever attempted a pass in the NFL. So that one's a little perplexing.
You've got the quarterback out wide left, so you're playing 10 on 10. But it's for the most part, it's still a bunch formation. Everybody's bunched up tight. I've always thought down at the goal line, whether it's maybe you don't run the Wildcat out of a spread formation, whatever. I've always said spread them out and give your back a chance. This team has great running backs with Hines and Taylor, and just give them a chance, a seam. But and if it works, we're all saying what a great move. I go back to if the rookie wideout makes the catch, we're not talking about this.
Yeah. Yep. A lot of big missed opportunity for the Colts on that one. And it did give the Texans some momentum. They take over at their 4. Davis Mills found a bit of a rhythm here. He would lead Houston down to Indy's 27-yard line. The drive would stall, and the Texans even things up with a 45-yard field goal. It's 3-3 halfway through the second quarter. Colts get the ball back, and they feed their stars. 28-yard pass to Michael Pittman Jr. starts the drive. 3 straight Jonathan Taylor runs gets Indy to Houston's 25-yard line. A short pass to Pittman sets up 2nd and 7 at the 22. And then the Colts go for a screen pass that is wide open, but Matt Ryan's pass does not quite make it over the defensive end, Jerry Hughes, who intercepts the ball. Hughes, the former Colts first-round pick, just snatches it right out of the air and returns it to the 42-yard line, really setting up Houston with good field position, and they would take advantage. After giving up a first down on the ground, Kenny Moore is called for pass interference. Not a whole lot there on the play, but there was some contact, so the refs are going to throw that flag every once in a while, and Moore got dinged for that one. 33-yard penalty puts Houston at Indy's 16-yard line. The very next play, Davis Mills would hit tight end O.J. Howard up the seam for a touchdown. Extra point is good, 10-3, and Houston takes the lead. The Colts have about 2 minutes and 30 seconds to score before the half, and Ryan and the Indianapolis offense are driving. A 20-yard pass to Michael Pittman Jr. gets the Colts into Houston territory, but on 2nd and 6 from the 30, again, Jerry Hughes, he goes right around Braden Smith and sacks Ryan, who fumbles. Thankfully, Indianapolis would come up with the ball, but it is a 7-yard loss. Then 3rd and 13 becomes 3rd and 18 after a Braden Smith false start. Really just a bad series by Smith. Matt Ryan's 3rd down pass for Pittman is a little behind him, falls incomplete. The Colts now out of field goal range, have to punt with 45 seconds left in the half. And the defense would hold. Colts go into halftime down 10-3. Houston would come into the third quarter firing. They start the second half of this game with the flea flicker. 42 yards. Brandon Cooks takes them into Colts territory. Indianapolis would tighten up from there and force a 43-yard field goal. Houston extends their lead 13-3. Colts with the ball now, and their drive's aided by a couple of Houston penalties. But on 3rd and 2, Matt Ryan fumbles the snap from under center. It's recovered by Houston at their own 42-yard line. Mike, this is something we kind of saw all day between Matt Ryan and Ryan Kelly. It looked like they hadn't practiced snaps all summer. What was the deal? I think I counted at least 3 instances in which Matt Ryan wasn't able to handle the snap. I think 1 from shotgun and a couple from under center.
Yeah, and again, they didn't practice, or they didn't play a ton in preseason games, but they practiced. I mean, the first unit was together the entire training camp. I think I saw something from the locker room. One of the guys reported that Ryan Kelly said one of them was on him because he and Ryan, they were on the wrong cadence. So I'm guessing Ryan got the ball early or late, whichever. But you can't have those are three plays that are just gone. Those are 3 busted plays, and it turns into a turnover. So you just can't have that. It's tough enough to win. It's tough enough to run an efficient offense, but when you can't get the exchange from the center, either under center or shotgun, is inexcusable. And they'll get it fixed. But in this instance, it was 3 plays that they just botched.
Yeah, absolute botch. The turnover gives Houston the ball, and they would need just 4 plays and a Yannick Ngakoue roughing the passer penalty to find the end zone. 22-yard pass for O.J. Howard's second touchdown of the day after just joining the Texans maybe last week. I know he was cut from the Bills, joins the Texans, and in his first game he's got 2 touchdowns. His second touchdown put the Colts down 17 points. It's a 20-3 ball game. How does Indianapolis respond? With a 3-and-out, Ryan fumbles another snap. It's recovered by the Colts this time. The Colts would punt the ball to Houston with 6 minutes left in the third. But this is a great special teams play. Indy pins Houston down at their own 1-yard line. They force a 3-and-out, but on the punt, E.J. Speed made contact, barely, but he made contact with that punter on 4th down. 5-yard penalty would give Houston a new set of downs. Houston would drive down to the Colts' 36-yard line, but that defense would kind of did what they did all day, is they would allow the Texans to kind of drive a little bit and then stiffen up, and they would force a punt. So the mistake on 4th down, it hurts you with field position-wise, but it did not result in points for the Texans. Beginning the fourth quarter now, the Colts need to score. They're down 17. Matt Ryan would just wake up on this drive. 14 yards to Pittman, 16 yards to Doolin, 13 yards to Mo Alley-Cox, another 23 yards to Doolin, and a 9-yard pass to Naheem Hines sets Indy up with a 1st and goal from the 4. First down, incomplete to Pittman on a slant. The ball was knocked away in tight coverage. Second down, Ryan would find Doolin in the back of the end zone. He's got 2 hands on it, 2 feet down, but the defender stuck his fingers in there at the last second to knock it loose. Mike, I get it's probably technically a knockaway by the defender.
It's a drop.
But in my book, that's a drop. You have to make that catch.
Yeah, it's give the defender credit when he gets there just as the ball's getting there. But when the receiver's got both hands on it, you've got to secure it because you're either going to get hit or somebody's going to grab for it. So that's a drop. I looked at it the first time myself, like you, and I thought, did the guy knock it away? Well, yeah, he did, but you shouldn't let it get to that point. So a clear drop, and as we see in a few plays, it cost him 4 points.
Yeah, it's not like the defender got there right as the ball hit his hands. He's got his hands on it. He's kind of like tucking it away. And as he's securing it and trying to get his feet down, the defender sticks his hand in there. I mean, you got to give the defender credit on that one. But even still, you just have to secure that football and have stronger hands than that. Let's see. So that brings up 3rd down now. Matt Ryan forces a pass into Pierce. It's knocked away by the 3rd overall pick, Derek Stingley Jr., and the Colts settle for a field goal to make it a 2-score game, 20-6. Houston still up by a pair of touchdowns with about 10 minutes left. The Colts defense came up with a play right when they need one. On the second play of Houston's next drive, linebacker E.J. Speed, my boy, would get to Davis Mills for a strip sack recovered by DeForest Buckner, and the Colts take over at Houston's 20. Jonathan Taylor and Ashton Doolin would get the ball down to the 2. And Taylor would finish the job, slicing into the end zone on 2nd and goal for the Colts' first touchdown of the 2022 season. The score is now 20-13 with about half a quarter left, and we have a ball game. The Colts defense did its job and forces another punt. Indy gets the ball at their own 20, down 7 with 4.5 minutes left. On 2nd and 10, Matt Ryan finds Strawn for 16 yards. Then Jonathan Taylor gets rolling. He had runs of 9, 13, 13, and 14 yards on that drive. That set up a 15-yard touchdown to Michael Pittman Jr. to tie the game. Pittman just caught it near the 8, made the first defender miss, and barreled through the second defender for the touchdown. It is 20-20 with just under 2 minutes left. Time for the defense to hold up. Blankenship's kickoff would go out of bounds. Inexcusable mistake by the kicker. This sets Houston up at the 40-yard line. All they need is a field goal to take the lead. But the Colts defense came up big again. They forced another 3-and-out. On the ensuing punt now, Colts going to get the ball back with a chance to go ahead and win the game. Nyheim Hines fumbles the ball, but Isaiah Rodgers is there to scoop it right up. I mean, the Colts just making sure nobody's leaning back on their seats. They got everybody biting nails, doing everything they can to get you sweating in this football game. Colts start the drive to potentially win the game from their own 9 with 1 minute and 16 seconds left and 2 timeouts. Indy works their way up to the 42-yard line. It's 3rd and 3. Matt Ryan dumps the ball down to Jonathan Taylor with room to run, but instead of picking up the first down, Taylor runs out of bounds after gaining just 2 yards. It's now 4th and 1 with 19 seconds left, and the Colts punt and play for overtime. Mike, this was just another example of, the wrong thing in the wrong situation out of the offense. Jonathan Taylor has the ball. I mean, if he's not worried about the clock, he picks up that first down 10 times out of 10. He's one-on-one with a defender with space and just must not have known the situation, that there were 2 timeouts and the first down was more important. A mental blunder by Jonathan Taylor, who's usually so terrific.
Yeah, I'm sure when he reviews the video, he'll say, man, I can't believe I did that. Because, again, if he just cuts it up, he's going to get another 4 or 5 yards. And you call a timeout, and then you're in position to take it'd be like with, 19 seconds play, let's say 17 seconds, 3 shots. You'd have 3 plays to get in position for a long field goal. So, yeah, you hate to criticize that player that goes 31 for 161, but that's one you'd love to have back.
So we're heading into overtime now. Texans win the toss, and Blankenship's kickoff again goes out of bounds. Can't believe it. Jaws on the ground, but thankfully that Colts defense would have his back. Kwity Paye sacks Davis Mills on first down. Second down pass falls incomplete. On 3rd and 17, Houston has a false start, backing them up even more. And then 3rd down, Kwity Paye finishes what he started with another sack, giving the ball back to the Colts. All they need is a field goal to drive down and win the game. And this drive starts at the 31-yard line. Matt Ryan scrambles for 10 yards on 2nd and 10, doing his best Carson Wentz impression on that one. 3rd and 10 now, Ryan finds Paris Campbell for a clutch 12 yards. We have a first down at the 47. Matt Ryan fumbles the snap yet again, the 3rd time this has happened, but he would recover. The Colts with the ball. They would find Nyheim Hines for 15 yards on the next play. Mo Alley-Cox gained another 13 to set up first down at the 24-yard line. First down, JT runs for 8. Great. 2nd down now. Jonathan Taylor loses 2 yards. And on 3rd down, Ryan takes a sack for a 5-yard loss, making the game-winning field goal even farther. But still, 42-yard field goal, Blankenship with a chance to win the game well within his range. Wide right. Mike, not even close. Blankenship's a guy who usually within under 45 yards, he's pretty consistent, pretty accurate. I'm not sure if the nerves got to him or what, but this missed field goal was part of a horrendous end of the game for Blankenship with his 2 kickoffs that went out of bounds and then just absolutely blowing a chance to take home the victory.
Yeah, you'd like to, maybe if you want to nitpick, say, boy, you had 2nd and 2 at the 16, and that would have been like a 34-yard field goal. And then, Taylor loses 3, and then Ryan had that naked roll to the right where earlier they hit Pittman for like 20, whatever it was, worked perfect. And Frank Reich's rationale was, hey, if the rollout by Ryan works, maybe they continue the drive and score a touchdown. Worst case, they're looking at a 40 or 42-yard field goal. And there was a stat, and he said we thought that's 80 percentile. And someone at the Indy Star put out there that since 2000 or whatever it's been, that it's 82.3% on 42-yarders. And you look at, I was looking at Blankenship. He is 27 of 31 on 42 yarders. That's 87%. That's still not really what you want inside the 40. But if your kicker can't kick, and go back and look, if that's a 34-yarder, he still misses it. That's it.
Yeah.
That's how wide right it was. So if you're going to be a championship team, if you're going to be a team that thinks it should win the AFC South, my goodness, kick a 42-yarder. I wrote about it in my main story for online. Is there was so much that went wrong. 3 botched center snaps and a wildcat and drop touchdowns and this, that, and the other. The defense, Kenny Moore with a couple of penalties. None of that matters if your kicker kicks a 42-yard field goal. Now, we saw there was some strange kicking across the league Sunday, but you cannot, if you can't rely on your kicker to kick a 42-yarder, then what are you doing? And I'm guessing they'll have people come in for tryouts this week. But the one thing that you really don't want to get into, it's 2 things, and they're both kind of bad. One is sticking with a kicker that you don't have confidence in, which I really think is where they're at. And the second is playing musical chairs at kicker. It's probably harder to replace your kicker than it is to replace your left tackle. In finding things once the season starts. So, I believe Michael Badgley's still out there. I think Chase McLaughlin's still out there, I think. But, when the season starts, guys are out there. What I said is guys are out there for a reason. You think that the 32 teams lets players sit out there that they think can play at a decent level. So we'll see. But the way they've handled it, we've talked about this, and they entered the season with 2 or 3 really concerns, and kicker was one of them. It just was. Go back to how they handled Blankenship last year when he had the injury, then he was ready to kick after a month, and they said, that's okay, just let yourself get really, really healthy. We're okay with Badgley. So we'll see, but it's they say it comes down to, it never comes down to one play, but yeah, it did. It came down to one play. Your kicker has to kick a 42-yard field goal.
Yeah, and he couldn't get it done. There's still 2 minutes left in this game. The Texans still have a chance to win. All they need is a field goal. Davis Mills leads Houston down to Indy's 47, but on 3rd and 1, Big Grover Stewart stuffs Rex Burkhead for a 2-yard loss, and that would pretty much seal the tie. A final score of 20-20. Like Mike said at the top of the show, the first Colts tie since 1982. Before we get into takeaways here, Mike, were there any injuries in this game? I did not see any. Was there anything that I missed?
No, I was a little curious whether Pierce would be held out for concussion protocol, but he wasn't. That was a pretty vicious hit. So, no, nothing was reported. I initially thought maybe that Matt Pryor was dinged up because they brought in Bernhard Raimann for a handful of plays, but apparently they're going to start rotating or at least giving the rookie a chance to play left tackle.
Gotcha. Going into takeaways here now, while we're talking about the offensive line, what did you think about their performance? I didn't, honestly, in terms of, someone standing out, it was Braden Smith who got dominated by Jerry Hughes for a few plays. I didn't notice as much going on at left tackle. What was your overall thoughts on the offensive line this week?
Same. I thought there was some pressure off the edges, but much more, unfortunately, from Braden Smith. I thought he had trouble with Jerry Hughes. He just did the speed rush.
34-year-old Jerry Hughes.
Right. I think I saw that Houston had 7 quarterback hits, which sounds like a lot, but Ryan dropped back 54 times. So I think if you drop back 54 times, you're going to get hit. But there were 2 sacks, and one of them was the one at the end, which was sort of a gimme sack with the rollout, getting into field goal position, I guess. So I thought the line played it well, and they ran the ball well. This was one of the stranger Taylor games 161 yards, and his long carry was 17. Normally, when you go 161, you've got a 40 or a 50 in there that pumps it up, but he just wore him down. They talked about monitoring JT's workload. They didn't. He wasn't on a pitch count on Sunday. We'll see how this goes moving forward. And as Reich told us before, there'll be games where he has 30, and there'll be games where he has 18. So it'll probably even out. I thought the line played well, except for a handful of instances. And the problem is when you have a breakdown, they normally just kill you. You know, the one where EJ Speed gets a free shot on Davis Mills, and it's a sack fumble. Those are the ones you just can't have. And the one with Jerry Hughes, Braden just got beat with a speed rush, and it blew up on him.
Yeah, he probably wasn't ready for the speed rush against Hughes. But, talking more takeaways here. Mike, the Colts would move the ball all over the field, but they failed to finish drives. 519 total yards is currently first in the NFL before tonight's Monday night showdown between the Broncos and the Seahawks. Per SB Nation's Josh Wilson, it's just the 9th time in Colts history they topped 500 yards and held their opponent under 300 yards. The first time since 2014, the Colts were 8-0 in all previous instances of this happening. Really just perplexing how they found a way to not come away with a win in this one. And it came down to not scoring points once they got in close. The Colts drove into Houston's territory 9 times, and they reached Houston's 30 8 separate times, and they still came away with just 20 points. That's inexcusable. And, Mike, that's something we witnessed out of this Colts team at the beginning of last season. They would drive down, they'd get near the goal line or into scoring territory, and they weren't coming away with enough touchdowns.
Yeah, and that's what we're going to hear. Finish. And when you do, you find a way to win. When you don't, you generally lose one-possession games, or in this case, the rare ties. So when we talk to Frank Reich later today, I'm guessing it's going to be, hey, we just need to finish. And he's right. It's, execute when you need to. The Wildcat, the 2 touchdown catches that were drops, one was a tough play because the DB, helped cause the non-catch. The other by the rookie. You hate to keep coming back and pounding on the rookie, but, he's a pro now. Make catches. And as we said earlier, it wasn't exactly a real tough catch. He did a great job of getting open after Ryan scrambled a little bit, but it's just, I think, like Frank said, 500 yards. When you get 500 yards, you should score 40 points, and he's right. And when you don't, when you let things go by, when you leave points on the field, or especially early, if the Wildcat scores or Pierce scores a touchdown, it's 10-0, and then who knows? Who knows how things go? So you allow a team to hang around early, and then you're scrambling late, and again, they're fortunate to come out of there with a tie. If that's a positive takeaway, at least they didn't lose.
Yeah, and I'll take it as a positive. I mean, there's a lot of negative things. It was such a weird game. There were so many negative things that were happening. There were so many positive things that happened as well. I guess, it feels like a loss, but it doesn't count as a loss in the standings. So I'll take that as a Colts fan. Let's talk about Matt Ryan's debut. He finishes 32 of 50 for 352 yards. That's currently second to only Patrick Mahomes right now in the yardage category. He had 1 touchdown pass, 1 interception on that screen. He fumbled 4 times, only lost 1 of them, and he was sacked 2 other times, both by Jerry Hughes, who just had a crazy game. We've talked about Kelly and Ryan have got to fix the snap issues. 1 botched snap is inexcusable, let alone 3. We talked about Matt Ryan having 2 touchdown passes dropped. So this could have been a much better day for Ryan statistically. What did you think of his overall performance?
Good enough. I mean, good enough if other things hadn't happened. Like you said, just the 2 plays, not spectacular plays, but 2 plays. He's 34 for 50 for 360, 365, and 3 touchdowns. And they probably win, maybe going away with the touchdown. So I thought he did his job. The fumbled snaps we talked about, you can't have that. That's I don't care if you're a rookie, you can't have that. So if they get that kind of game, and this I don't mean we don't need to be Ryan apologists at all, but if they get that kind of game out of him every week, they're going to be fine. They will.
Yeah.
It's funny. He showed people that he's not exactly Michael Vick, but he can run. He can do things, and when it's there, he's going to pick up a scramble first down or whatever. They're not going to live and die on that. But, in the fourth quarter when they really had to get going, really had to turn it up, he's 12 and 19 for 146 in the touchdown. So, he was good enough. JT was more than good enough. Pittman was more than good enough. But this team, as we've said, I think many times, is not good enough to do, the mistakes and the missed assignments and whatever and the fumbles. They're not good enough to overcome that. They just aren't.
Yeah, and, I thought I was happy with Ryan's debut. I thought he was pretty good overall. Like you mentioned, he picked up a couple first down with his legs. That's not something a lot of people were expecting going into the game. Threw for a ton of yards. I thought other than the fumbles, he took pretty good care of the ball. Obviously, the screen pass interception is kind of a weird play that you'd like to have back. If he gets that over the defender, Jonathan Taylor might have scored on that one because it was blocked up pretty nicely. But yeah, his playmakers are just going to have to make plays. And that's kind of our next takeaway here. Before we move on to the next one, though, I do want to zoom out for a second and acknowledge that Matt Ryan with that game surpassed 60,000 pass yards for his career. He passes he passes Peyton Manning as the second fastest to ever hit that milestone. Only Drew Brees did it faster. So Matt Ryan's been around for a long time. He's been playing at a high level for a long time. When he played at a high level on Sunday, talking about his weapons, it was Taylor, it was Pittman, and not a whole lot else. They really did the heavy lifting in this game. The two of them combined for nearly 300 yards. Jonathan Taylor did not get any kind of rest whatsoever. 35 touches in this game, 161 yards on the ground and a touchdown. Another 4 catches for 14 yards through the air. Pittman caught 9 of 13 targets for 121 yards and a touchdown. The next best producer was Nyheim Hines. He had 9 touches for 54 total yards, 50 of them receiving. No other Colt had more than 3 touches. That would be Ashton Doolin, who had 3 catches for 46 yards. Mike, we kind of talked all offseason about this wide receiver group. We didn't think it was good enough. The Colts were very adamant that they liked their young guys. They're going to roll with the young guys. Well, one could argue pretty easily that taking that strategy at wide receiver cost them a win in week 1, because if Doolin or Pierce makes that catch in the end zone, the Colts probably win this game. They would at least have the lead. Houston would have to have scored more points than they did. What do you think about this offensive skill position group? Is it enough for Matt Ryan behind Taylor, behind Pittman? Because at certain points, other guys are going to have to step up, and they didn't in this game, and it costs them.
Yeah, and we saw Julio Jones make some big plays last night, which rubs it in even more.
Yeah,
but they had their chances. I mean, you mentioned the receptions, but Ryan gave guys chances. Doolin had 6 targets. Paris Campbell had 4. Kylan Granson had 7. Only 3 catches, which is not enough. Mo Ali Cox only 2 targets, and Pierce 2 targets and no receptions. I'm not a football brainiac, but it's not a good game when Jerry Hughes has more catches from Ryan than Alec Pierce does. Not a good thing. So we'll see. But again, with all the concerns, and I do have concerns about the experience of the group, the production of the group. If Pierce just catches the ball and if Doolin just catches it, that shouldn't be an experience thing. That's what you do. That's your job. So again, it's amazing how one play, a bad kick, shines a really, really bright spotlight on the glaring deficiencies. The deficiencies. Again, if Blankenship makes a kick, then you say, well, it's too bad these guys didn't do this or didn't that, but they won. Well, when you don't win, everything that you do wrong or come up short with is just magnified, and that's what we're talking about.
Yeah, if Blankenship, all the things we've discussed, if Blankenship makes that kick, we're sitting here talking about how Matt Ryan led the Colts on a 17-point fourth quarter comeback to win the game in his first ever all game. The narrative is completely
It would have been a 20-point comeback. 20 points at the end, 20 unanswered points to win. You're right, 17 points from behind. That's why this game is so close, and penalties and turnovers and all this. When it's I'm not going to say it's unfair because this is the NFL, but guys have jobs to do, and the problem with a kicker is, let's say you're a left tackle and you play, in this case, 90 plays that the offense had. You play 90 plays and you're really good on 85 of them. You probably had a pretty good game as long as you didn't give up a couple of strip sacks. If you're a kicker and you're out there, I don't know. I didn't figure up his on-field time. Let's say a dozen times, and you pound 2 kickoffs out of bounds. Fortunately, you're like you said, the defense has your back, and you spray a 42-yard game-winning field goal wide right. You had a bad game. You had a bad game because your time to do bad things and atone for it is slim. So it's unfair, but that's the job of a kicker, and that's why you see teams change kickers often, because you just can't wait for a kicker to get it right. So, will Blankenship be the kicker this week? My gut says yes, I guess, because I don't know what they find better. And like I said, the one thing they don't want to do is start getting into a week-to-week, month-to-month changing kickers. That's not going to work. That seldom works.
This has been an issue for the Colts since Vinatieri's final year, where he played through injuries and just kind of went out on a low note, missing a lot of field goals. Entering the season, the Colts made 80.6% of their field goals since 2019. That is the 6th worst in the NFL. Mike, you provided that stat on Twitter at mchappell51. Go follow him. Hot Rod's made 83.3% of his field goals in his career.
It's not good enough.
But it's not good enough, and this is his second game in a row that he's missed a potential game winner. The last game he played was the Baltimore game, and I get it. He was kicking hurt. He was kicking through injury. But now the last 2 times we've seen Hot Rod, he's missed game-winning kicks, not been good enough when it really mattered at the end of the game. How long do you think the leash is on Blankenship? Do you think he has another week or 2 to kind of prove himself before they move on? What would it take for the Colts to go with a different kicker?
Well, maybe they will. I think that this team realizes it can't go back to 19 when they stuck with Vinatieri until he couldn't kick anymore because he had ended up having knee surgery. That was a little different because and Frank said at the time, well, he says this guy's been around and he admitted he's got a longer leash. Well, that's not the case here. That's not the case here. It's just going to be whether or not they believe they can bring somebody in who gives them more consistency. We talked about leg strength and can you knock down a 55-yarder? Well, you have to occasionally. 42 yards, that's not – I'm surprised it's only like 82%. To me, that seems like it should be a lot higher for these kickers nowadays. But you can't – I think we went back and looked in Vinny's last year. The kicking cost him probably 3 games. You going to do that again? I mean, are you going to do that again? But I kind of expect Blankenship to be the kicker again this week, only because you don't want to get into that cycle of uncertainty. But at the same time, these guys know the value of these wins, and if they can bring in somebody that they just have more faith in, and that won't take a lot because I don't think they have a lot of faith in Hot Rod right now. I really don't. So what happens? You go to Jacksonville and he's your kicker, and it's 4th and 2, and are you going to go for it for a 40-yard field goal, or are you going to go for it? And that's going to come into the equation now because you don't trust your kicker. It just messes up everything. I'm curious to see how they handle this. Like I say, the problem is it's just not easy to find replacements, especially kicker, because you bring in a kicker and he doesn't get good for a game or two, then he botches one. So we'll see. But they've always got, I'm sure Chris Ballard's got a big board at all positions and of guys that are available, and I'm sure he's got a list of 8 to 10 kickers, varying degrees of experience and productivity. But rest assured, they are talking about that long and hard last night and today.
Yeah, I mean, given that there aren't just reliable kickers out there on the street waiting to be picked up, if I had to guess, I'd say Blankenship is there again this Sunday against Jacksonville. But if he has another poor game, I would not be surprised.
Did you change because you're the rest of the team says, wait a minute, what are you doing?
Yeah,
I mean it's these players again. You got Taylor. Now, Taylor would never do it, but you've got players who are out there and every play and they're giving this, that, and the other. They get hit and it comes down to a kick, and you look at the guy and you say, hey, do your job. We're not asking you to kick a 61-yarder. We're asking you to kick a 42-yard field goal. Do your job.
Yeah, and it's just a mental issue at that point. I mean, you can't put it other way than it was a choke job. I mean, he's got plenty of leg. He should be able to make that field goal. Same with the kickoffs. I mean, the entire beginning of the game until the very end, the fourth quarter and overtime kicks, the kickoffs were fine. And then he just botches the 2 out of bounds. I don't know if it was nerves, his first game back in quite a while, after sitting out the second half of last season, or what it was, but professional kickers need to perform better than that.
Well, like you mentioned, one last thing, like you mentioned, you kick the overtime kickoff out of bounds. They're at the
after doing it once already.
They're at the 40-yard line. You said that they need 2 first downs, 25 yards, and Fairbairn's kicking a game-winning field goal.
Yep. Rough stuff, but somehow the Colts didn't lose. They and the Texans sit atop the AFC South at 0-1. That's because the Titans start 0-1 with a season-opening loss at home to the New York Giants. They lost 21-20. The Giants took the lead on a late 2-point conversion that would ultimately win the game for them. Gutsy call by Brian Dable in his first game as a head coach. And they also had a kicking issue. They had, I believe, a 47-yarder that would have won the game for them after the Giants scored to make it 21-20, and they missed their field goal. So they're not the only team in the AFC South that had a chance to win the game on the field goal and missed. Tennessee really had no answer for Saquon Barkley, who put up nearly 200 yards from scrimmage, and the Giants held Derrick Henry to just 82 yards on 21 carries. I'll do the math for you. That is under 4 yards a pop. Henry still trying to work his way into peak form. He looked so good early last year. Then he had the injury and has not quite shown that same kind of explosiveness and ability to really break the long ones yet. We'll see if it happens as the year goes on. Jacksonville also starts 0-1 after losing 28-22 to Carson Wentz and the Commanders in Washington. Wentz was 27-41 for 313 yards, 4 touchdown passes, and 2 interceptions. On the other side, Trevor Lawrence, who will be facing this Colts defense next, or I guess this coming week, this coming Sunday, was 24 of 42 for 275 yards, 1 touchdown, 1 interception. The other thing of note here, running back James Robinson, who just tore his Achilles in December, continues to, beat the odds in his recovery. He averaged over 6 yards per carry and had 2 touchdowns in his first game back, just about half a year removed, maybe a little more than half a year removed from that torn Achilles. So that's certainly amazing to see. We will preview the Colts versus Jaguars game on Thursday. Dave Griffiths will join us for that one. We'll break that down because the Colts have another streak to break. They'll be in Jacksonville trying to break their losing ways that they've had down there. What is it, Mike? 7 straight losses in Jacksonville?
It's Andrew Luck's rookie year, in 2014. was the last win. They've lost 7 straight road games, including one in London, and they've just been awful down there. Awful.
And that is the place where they'll try and make amends for not only their tie week 1, but for their loss in week 17 of last year that kept them out of the playoffs. We'll get you ready for that game in just a few days. Thank you so much for listening, Colts fans. It's been an interesting week 1, and it's only going to get better as we go throughout the season. So for myself, Joe Hopkins, for Mike Chappell, you can follow the Colts Blue Zone on Twitter at Colts Blue Zone. Follow Mike Chappell at mchappell51. You can follow me at Roto Street Joe. Check out Mike's work online. He'll have things throughout the week on fox59.com and cbs4indy.com. And, of course, his Twitter will keep you updated on all the things that don't necessarily warrant a full article over, but just nice things to know as the week goes along. So, again, thank you for listening, and have a good one, Colts fans.